Hey, I'm back with another of those Moby Games users picks by year and genre video, and today we're gonna cover strictly business simulations, so finance-based games. Be it stock market, running your own company, anything that is played to earn more and more, and where the monetary gains are the ends and not the means. So yeah, let's jump in. Yep, the genre goes that way back. And Computer Stocks and Bonds is a pretty solid digital adaptation of Avalon Hill's board game of the same title. The goal here is rather simple. You and up to 7 others are given $5,000 in your starting capital and have to invest in one of 10 different securities, buying and selling stocks each year to become the wealthiest of all competitors. Each round corresponds to a year of in-game time, and for a game entirely made in BASIC, Computer Stocks and Bonds is a pretty neat little multiplayer game, even implementing Happy Monday and Black Friday mechanics found in Tabletop Original. In 1982, it was easily the best game of its kind. Perhaps because there was no real competition, but the reason is not important. Graphics are virtually non-existent in Computer Stocks and Bonds, and everything plays out in text mode. It's not an issue for someone who knows what they're getting into and doing it anyway. For others, it may look a bit too Spartan to be of interest, which means that the next 3-4 entries in this video will be too. Similarly to the previous game on our list, Tycoon, the commodity market simulation, is a trading business simulation. Unlike it, however, it does not focus on stocks, but various commodities. You start with $10,000 this time, and your goal is to turn it into much more. Around $1 million to be precise. And 1983's million is like a bazillion today. Each turn represents a week of in-game time, and it's much deeper game than 1982's Computer Stocks and Bonds. Cause while it's only single player, you can keep track of changing prices, surveying the market for any moves, you can follow the news and review contracts on offer before making any final decisions. It's just more and better, for the lack of a better word. Interestingly enough, Tycoon offers a simple progression system, initially allowing you to only trade a limited number of high-margin commodities and make long-position investments. In time, as you increase your net worth, more commodities and opportunities will open up for you, allowing you to diversify your investments more. While Tycoon can only be played in single player and offers no competition with anyone whatsoever, the game is capable of keeping data and achievement histories of up to 14 players at once. It's an interesting financial simulator focusing on much less popular than stocks commodities, which if you think about it is odd, cause you can earn and lose as much on them as when trading stocks. Star Traders, aka Starlanes, is a sci-fi interstellar trading game where, same as in all games in this particular video, your objective is to become the wealthiest of all players. To do so, you'll have to create companies, buy and sell shares, borrow, and when possible, repay earlier borrowed money too. Interestingly enough, Star Traders is the only game in this video that cannot be played in single-player mode, and at least 2 of you are required to have fun. It's also one with very limited footage available online, so what you see is what you get, and it's only screenshots. On the flip side, it's a game that gets newer and more expanded releases every few years, and the most current one is available for Linux/Unix systems only. Cartels and Cutthroats for the longest time was considered as one of the most thorough, deep and accurately to real-life running business simulations. Why? Because it's an illustration of basic tenets in finance and economy. Up to 8 players can compete for profit in the game, and understanding at least fundamental concepts of economy is required for having chance for success. So stuff like marginal cost, consumer price index, financial statesman, concepts of minimization of costs per unit, or even when to borrow the money. Paying the attention to state of economy and customers' taste is also crucial, and both fluctuate constantly. But what do you actually do in Cartels and Cutthroats, you may wonder? Well, you run a manufacturing company producing something. Yes, something. And you have to expand your company into a huge conglomerate, increasing its value and amassing riches. There are few starting scenarios available and few ways of playing the game in multiplayer. So you can play an open game where all players sit at the same screen and all of you can see all the reports. A closed game where one person at the time sits at the screen and others have to sit back and only ever go to the computer when it's their turn. And finally, a hard copy way where all the reports are printed out on paper for each player for that authentic feeling experience of waving pieces of paper and shouting when running 1980s businesses. Business Simulator, also known as Ventures Business Simulator, is a very special game among all we have and will talk about today. It's because it was designed by the economy professors at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business. and was supposedly used through the years by over 10,000 Fortune 500 executives. So, its claim to fame is the unparalleled realism and depth of underlying mechanics running it. Also, legitimacy. Being more of a serious educational tool than the game, Business Simulator is only playable by one person at a time and does not try to be a multiplayer experience of any kind. You're put in charge of the company that raised $500,000 of capital and is set up to manufacture pet bots, home pet robots. That said, the product here is irrelevant really and just a flavor-adding detail. What is important though is 5 differently demanding levels that you have to play through, each posing different challenges and situations for you to find yourself in, overcome and come on top, raising your company's value and profits. And as you do, you will compete with giants of the industry like Apple, Tandy or Texas Instruments. Well, Tandy is neither a giant nor even existing anymore, but you get what I mean, right? The goal here is to achieve $1 billion in sales. The game, same as most on this list so far, is not using any graphics for its presentation and leaves everything in the easily readable, reports overflowing and numbers-rich text mode. It may not be the most fun in the strict meaning of the word title on this list, but it's definitely one of the most competent. Millionaire, the stock market simulation, is actually a second expanded and superior release to 1982's original and a stock market simulation. Surprise, surprise. I bet you didn't expect it, and going by the title alone, you'd assume that it's a hot dog stand manager. Anyway, it may seem on the first glance to be a rather limited title, at least by 1987 standards, offering barely 15 different stocks to trade, but the underlying mechanics and included gameplay concepts are pretty deep. There's 5 difficulty levels in the game, and the lower the one you pick, the fewer different options you'll have to use during gameplay. So, to really experience what Millionaire has to offer, you have to play it on the highest of them all, aptly named Broker, and enabling all the tools at real traders' hands. So buying stocks on and without margin, using of call and put options, and selling short too, among others. Millionaire is naturally played in turns, with each representing a week of in-game time. In each turn, you can buy and sell stocks, read the news and stock descriptions, look up time series graphs for each individual stock, industry and the stock market overall, and check stock option prices. I always romanticized stock market games, because being the stupid teen that I was, I found being able to trade stock and gain big with a little effort a dream. So I played those to death, trying to reach that imaginary goal of mine. As a grown-up, not once have I dabbled in stock trading, but I did in crypto, and it's more or less the same but better. Higher risk but higher reward too. But, and let me make that crystal clear here, this video is about video games only, and not a financial advice, and I'm not advocating crypto or any other kind of trading. Oof, that was close. You have no idea how fast these videos get demonetized. Hanse takes place in 14th century and sees you as a young citizen of Lübeck, Germany, who strives to become the mayor of the city. Why? Ambition? Greed? Power? Who knows? More importantly, who cares? It's a game, so to do so you need to secure your financial future first. In other words, amass a tremendous wealth. The more, the better. And Lübeck, being the heart of your operation, is the city you will purchase and export salt from, the most important commodity in the game. You'll trade it with other cities in Hanseatic League for goods that Lübeck requires and does not have access to on its own. And, well, naturally profit of it all too. So, you'll be trying to purchase the salt at the lowest price possible and ship it out to sell it at the highest margin. But you're not carrying the salt on your back, you're a gentleman after all, so naturally you'll need to purchase ships, yes, plural, arm them with cannons and manage your trading stations. Up to 6 players can play Hanse, and obviously with friends in hot seat mode, it's the most fun that the game can be. From time to time, CPU will raid your trading stations with their ships. The battle is completely automatic, but you get to place your cannons picking the best spots possible so that they could try to destroy the invading ships. It is not the only random event in the game, and you'll have a lot of choices to make all throughout it. So occurrences like weddings, natural disasters or otherwise will happen from time to time and require your input. It's not something that was necessary for Hanse to work, but definitely makes it more interesting and engaging title. Black Gold, aka Oil Imperium, puts you in dirty, greasy, but also oh so money-filled shoes of an oil magnate. Or oil magnet wannabe to be precise. And while it offers pretty solid economic model and is decently realistic, its best quality without a shred of a doubt is the fun factor. It's just plain and simple fun. And while obviously you'll be purchasing oil fields, surveying for oil and finally drilling it, you will also try to sabotage your opponent's fields, work to fulfill timed contracts, lay pipelines and extinguish oil field fires. And all that gets even better when played in multiplayer, which the game supports with up to 4 of you competing on a single system. Now, I get that limbs may be broken, eyes poked and teeth punched out, but still, it's really the most fun with others. Black Gold is a German game. And although I have not mentioned it in a while now, which I will try to make up for it in this video, I believe it's worth to highlight it here that in the late 80s and early 90s, German developers made the best management and business simulation games. A lot better than anyone else did. And no, I'm not German and don't speak the language. I'm just saying how it is. Or was, actually. Anyway, Black Gold is fun, grab a friend or two and check it out. Created by the legendary Sid Meier, Railroad Tycoon is as good of a game as you'd expect from this rightfully famous designer. And even though, as with most of his games, it did not offer much in terms of presentation, it definitely over-delivered in gameplay. The complex yet incredibly addictive mechanics and steep but fair learning curve made Railroad Tycoon an instant classic that spawned a whole series of games that kept being released periodically until 2006, I believe. This one, however, upon its release, became a hit and beloved by many titles, even to this day. It's one of those games that can be played repeatedly and near indefinitely. But what is it all about, though, you may wonder? If the title and overarching theme of this entire video hasn't given it away yet, it's a business simulation where you're responsible for micro and macro managing of your own railroad company. From laying off tracks and purchasing engines through expansion over the map to finally becoming the titular railroad tycoon. And since you start with $100,000 only, it will take a long while to get there. Or a few good and well executed investments, in the end it's all up to you. Okay, you don't really plan to become a tycoon per se, the ultimate goal is to retire with a lot of money and then become the president or prime minister, depending on the continent you play in. So while an ambitious goal indeed, and definitely requiring a lot of money to pull off, it's one that will guarantee you a lot of fun over plenty of few hours long sessions. Moby Games users picked Mad TV as the best business simulation of 1991. Now, perhaps it was the best for the year, I'm not disputing that, and it's no doubt following an interesting idea, but for me, it always felt like a shareware game rather than a full release, despite it not being the case whatsoever. Anyway, the gameplay concept is very unique, at least when comparing to everything else that we've spoke about to this point today, and that alone deserves recognition. As for once, you need trading stocks or commodities, nor running a transport company. In essence, you play as a program director for a TV station, and you alone are in charge of the TV programming scheduling. So, you'll be buying shows and movies, producing and filming your own, negotiating and securing advertising deals, and setting it up for your audience to enjoy. And all that while competing with 2 other rivaling TV stations. I mean, you're you, so yours is definitely the best, I've no doubt about that. It's a common knowledge like that the Earth is flat, all stars and sun revolve around it, and that no one ever landed on the moon, cause you just don't land on a block of cheese. But while all that and your superiority is obvious, it's not me who you gotta convince, but the general public. And as much as the person can be intelligent, smart or understanding, a public, so a group, a large chunk of population, is pretty much always rather stupid. So you will need to cycle your schedule, always looking for something new and popular so that it wouldn't become too stale and always kept them glued to the screen watching moving images. An interesting concept of Mad TV is a near complete disconnect of your in-game goal to what you do in it. So while you're running a TV station, your main task is to woo and then marry Betty, a beautiful but dumb like a bag of hammers cultural reporter who works on the top floor of your TV station's building. She's a rather shallow dame too, and her love is mainly dependent on your reputation and in smaller parts shows that you air. Yeah, she's that kind of a girl. So if you air some cultural programming to please her, you risk losing some audience, as cultural shows are not the most interesting ones for an everyday viewer. In opposition to that, action-packed movies bring in viewers but may upset her. Mad TV is a game of balance and you have to keep it. As you see, today's video is very German games heavy, but it's the genre they definitely specialized in and mastered. And the Patrician is another unquestionable proof that in the 16-bit era they were absolute grandmasters of trading and management games. It's an incredibly deep and well-executed trading game that simulates very complex and dynamic economy, where nearly everything from fully working supply and demand to business investments and action of all players influence it in one way or another. Where your ultimate goal is to become the leader of so-called Hanseatic League, I prefer playing Patrician as an open-ended title where you grow your empire and amass wealth. And to do so, you have a multitude of available endeavors. You'll obviously be trading using both trading offices and ships, buying goods cheap and selling them at high profit where they're most needed. You'll build public works, private houses, industries, and can even pursue a political career. Interaction with pirates and burglars is also not something out of your sphere of interest, if that's what you're after, or means to an end of your intricate business strategy. I wouldn't say that the Patrician was ahead of its time, but it was definitely a representative of the absolute best the times could offer in the genre, and a title that deservedly so gained huge popularity. What's best about it though, is that unlike its genre brethren, it wasn't made targeting hardcore management and business simulation enthusiasts. It had a very pleasant and colorful graphics, an easy to use and grasp interface, so even newcomers to the virtual business world could jump in and quickly familiarize themselves with it without getting lost and or confused. Merchant Prince is a gem. It's a historical trading simulation set in the Renaissance and the golden age of Venice times. And you play as a wealthy merchant that aims to be the richest and most influential person in Europe by the end game, which can be set to a specific date, and if it's not, it will end automatically at 1492. Well, that influence, or rather popularity, is the governing factor when deciding who won. So, while you want to, and more importantly need to make money, ultimately your target is to become the most popular. Getting to that elusive target will require you to raise your financial, political, religious, and also military standing. So, other than buying low, selling high, and transporting various goods, you'll dabble in politics, bribing senators left and right, you know how you do, and appointing ministers. You'll do the same in church, well, not the ministers, but you'll be heavily quote-unquote investing in the cardinals, swaying them to your ideas, and ultimately your way. Stuff like accusations of treason or calls for a holy crusade will not be unfamiliar subjects you'll raise with them while playing. And if that's not enough for whatever the reason, you'll also be able to hire mercenaries to attack your opponents, perform assassinations, or let's say use a little extra force to convince unwilling cities to open up for trade among others. And finally, you can be a philanthropist investing in arts and culture. Because why the hell not? The possibilities truly are endless here. Merchant Prince was made from ground up as a title that was as welcoming and easy to jump in and start playing to the new players as it's demanding to those versed in its loop, wanting to beat the game at higher difficulty levels. It doesn't discriminate and caters to gamers of various skills. You can play on a real world or a randomized map, and that second option extends the life of the title near indefinitely. Theme Park is easily one of my most favorite games. Yes, period. Not necessarily only in its genre. I played it first on the Amiga, and it was a love at first sight. I saw it at buddies of mine home when I came over to play arcade pool, king, queen, bowling and drink beers. For the YouTube's sake, let's call them non-alcoholic ones, and talk about fantasy books that both of us read back then passionately. I know, crazy, I had time to read books. Unthinkable. Anyway, ever since then I had a soft spot for Theme Park. It's a business management simulation where you run an amusement park. While it offers some sort of a campaign in which you can conquer different parts of the world, building parks all over it, the game itself is quite open-ended and you don't really have to either leave the area that you choose or particularly like, and can just stay there amassing wealth and optimizing your park down to the layout of each and every queue and pathway, or location of toilets or drinks and food serving facilities, all to earn more and spend less. In Theme Park, you're responsible for everything to keep the place running and the money flowing, from building of various attractions, hiring staff, research, supplemental facilities and prices, to even such minute details like aforementioned queue placement for each ride and amount of sugar in ice cream or bubbles in sodas. And I'm not even joking here. These are actually things you can really change in the game. In spite of cute and colorful graphics, the financial simulation backbone of Theme Park is not thin and it's pretty complex. There are a lot of things that need to be balanced, like the time each ride can be used to be as profitable as possible while still remaining safe and attractive before it needs to be serviced. Your goal really is to keep the guests in the park for as long as possible, spending as much as they can and not looking to leave. Theme Park is an amazing game, first in Bullfrog's Steam series, and a title that's full of quirky humor and unpredictable situations that provide a comic relief to a very solid underlying business simulation. Transport Tycoon Deluxe is a business simulation where you manage your own transport company. And at any given moment, if your funds allowed for that, you can have huge fleets of buses, trucks, trains, airplanes and boats to transport passengers, mail, retail goods of various kinds and basic resources like lumber and oil. Best of all, it can be played in the sandbox mode indefinitely, just the way I like those kinds of games to play out, rather than in slowly progressing campaign. In Transport Tycoon Deluxe, you aim to expand your transport empire and better all opponents you're facing against. So, while you'll be transporting a lot of various things, it's naturally best to create complete solutions covering a complete chain of supply and demand in different industries. Starting with transport of raw materials to where they will be processed, then those to where they will be made into final products, and eventually the products themselves to cities where they can be sold. It's worth keeping an eye on the competition too, as they tend to swoop in and steal best businesses from around you if you're not fast enough. Sadly, computer cheats, and can build more and faster than you ever could. So securing the most profitable transport routes as fast as possible is a good starting strategy. After that, steady progress and following the news is your best bet. The government often offers bonuses/lucrative contracts for completing certain transports, which can even end up being upwards of quadruple of regular profit. And you get to learn all of it from news. Transport Tycoon Deluxe was the best and most playable iteration of the game that many others tried to compete with for years. Today, it's best played as Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe, which not only contains all of the original's content, tons of fixes and a map editor, but also supports modern operating systems and high-resolution widescreen modes. Other than that, it's the same game, so if you want to try Transport Tycoon Deluxe, go for the new one. Let me start by saying that there's no footage for this version of MAG anywhere, so I'm gonna shower you with screenshots. It's not a shooter or a racer though, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. Also, use your imagination to move the cursor, and who can do it best wins. Don't know what yet, but maybe my respect and appreciation. So, with that out of the way, what is MAG? Or MAG, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point to be precise. So, MAG. Well, it's probably the most interesting out of all of today's games. Not best, mind you, but definitely most unique of them all. And in MAG, you run a video games review magazine covering either PC, Amiga, Atari ST, C64 or Amstrad CPC games. Which in itself is already a fantastic idea, but requires you to make some hard choices, as the game runs from 1985 to 1994. And in the first few years, PC was not very popular and Amiga didn't even exist. So, you have to start with some of the lower systems first, and in time create additional Macs covering the newer. Anyway, in Mac you'll be responsible for everything from hiring of the hardworking and knowledgeable in the chosen platform's editors, through types of columns and subjects should your Mac cover, all the way to deciding if it should be printed in color or black and white, weighing all the pros and cons along the way. Naturally, same as in the industry even today, though there aren't that many paper magazines left anymore, it's important to keep and cultivate good relations with the publishers, as those that are happy cooperating with you may offer you exclusivity review deals or earlier game copies. Interestingly enough, MAG is not really played in turns, and depending on the chosen difficulty, you have between 13 to 5 minutes to complete each month's issue. And that's probably the only thing I don't like about it, as I hate timers in my games. But whatever, it's a small fault in an otherwise rather fine game. Game that you can win in one of three pre-chosen ways, of either becoming the publisher with the greatest market share, biggest net worth, or gaining the highest score. MAG is an interesting idea, nay, game, and it's definitely worth checking out. Team Hospital, same as 15 earlier titles, is a business simulation game in which you run series of privately owned hospitals through its built-in campaign. Well, you didn't run hospitals in the other 15, but you know what I'm saying. It's a game well known for its dark sense of humor, pop culture references and the weirdest diseases that you've ever heard of. I mean stuff like bloaty heads, King's complexes turning patients into Elvis impersonators, or even alien DNA infections mutating people into half-aliens. All these are nothing out of ordinary in Team Hospital, and cures for them are as weird and can even be a literal popping of the enlarged head. The game's funny is what I'm saying here. But the fun factor does not get in the way of a pretty decent business management aspect of it. So, you'll be responsible for everything a good hospital GM would be, and many things you don't think they would take any interest in. So you'll design and build both diagnostic and treatment rooms, equip them with whatever's necessary and also with what's not, like decorations, trash cans and such. You'll hire staff, so doctors, nurses, receptionists and handymen, and you'll basically do anything and everything to attract as many patients as possible to keep the hospital profitable and patients healthy and cured. You'll also set up hospital policies deciding what, when, how and why anything would and would not be allowed in the hospital, and how patients should be treated, diagnosed and when released. It's hella fun. But what is not fun to me is the game's overarching design. Keep in mind, however, that it's a me issue and not a testament to Team Hospital's quality overall. The game was made to be a level-based kind of management, meaning that to unlock further kinds of diseases, rooms and game features, you will have to complete challenges in different hospitals in a campaign-like format. I get that it's set up that way to have the player gradually learn everything and master the game over time, but I prefer those kinds of experiences to play out in a free mode, where everything is available and just requires unlocking as you play in one chosen location. That's me though, so yeah, ignore it. Overall, Team Hospital is fantastic and an obvious choice for the best business DOS game of 1997. You know, I gotta say that I'm surprised with some of the wins here. Not all of them, but some I would not bet on. That said, generally speaking, it's a pretty solid list and MobyGames users did quite well picking their bests. Although, I'd like to see Vermeer take 1988 spot. I love it to bits and it's one of my most favorite games in the genre. The world didn't go for it though, so it is what it is. What do you think of today's winners though? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise been long forgotten. So thank you.